So why did the Bayesian Superyacht sink? Why is it that some people survived while others did not? And what is that we can learn from all of this so as to take into account if we find ourselves in somewhat of a similar situation? Guys, this is Fernando doing another video for the Modern Survivalist, and if you want to learn more about realistic, practical survival and preparedness, you have the channel with a ton of information already uploaded that you can use the search function to find, and you also have my books, Street Survival Skills for the practical skills that I believe you should learn, and Surviving the Economic Collapse, based on my experience going through just that in Argentina, something very relevant given the times we're living. Both of these books will be super helpful for your preparedness. What is it that happened here? Well, first of all, we're talking about not just any ordinary boat or sailboat. No, this is an elite super yacht, sailing yacht, but still...
The Bayesian is a super yacht of staggering proportions. It's 56 meters long and can accomplish
56-meter long,
tallest aluminium mast, a real feat of both engineering and design. Now,
tallest aluminium mast.
This London bus gives you a real sense of the size of...
Anyway, you get the picture. It is a super mega yacht sailing boat with everything that money can buy. The design is from one of these super famous Italian firms that design all of these things. So it's state-of-the-art engineering and materials and only the best in this super boat, right? How is it that this thing still sinks? Well, before we even get to any of this, just remember, Mother Nature can be pretty brutal. It doesn't matter if it's the Titanic, it doesn't matter if it's this yacht, if it's just your time, if it's just a tornado hitting the thing in the middle of the worst possible moment, well, anything can happen. So this is just one of those moments in which you have to admit that there's a level of humility that we need to bring along. Anything can sink, anything can fall apart, everything can break, especially when Mother Nature is pissed or it's just bad luck that happened to just be right there. Now, the first thing I want to go through is why is it that some people survive this thing?
Quickly. Also, other people say, well, they managed to launch a life raft. Well, this is not necessarily true. It's not necessarily what happened. An inflatable life raft has the ability to detach itself from a sinking vessel and self-inflate.
It self-inflates. So these are the things I would like you to try to remember. You've probably seen these like a big pill, like a white plastic shell, kind of like a big Tic Tac with a bit of ridges on the side or something along those lines, or like a plasticky box like these. These are rafts that are specifically designed to self-inflate when they get into contact with water. You don't need to deploy these things. So one of the most natural things, one of the more instinctive things is, I don't want to jump into the water while this thing is sinking because I don't have anything else to hold to, right? I would be better off in this thing, and maybe it doesn't fully sink, so I stay here maybe too long while there's
and then
actually
sever its cord
this.
And float back to the surface. Each raft has something called a hydrostatic release mechanism attached to it. Once the vessel sinks to a certain depth, the hydrostatic release will cut through the line that's holding that canister in place, and it will release the payload. It will open because the gas canister inside will stop.
These are all automatic survival mechanisms that these ships, it's not only on mega yachts. I mean, most decent ships these days will have these things. So expect these rafts not to be, you don't have to, this is not the damn Titanic. You don't have to deploy no, these are automatic, hydrostatic, or maybe because of the pressure he mentioned, when it sinks to a certain level, it just goes up, cuts on its own, and goes up. Whatever the mechanism is, these things will probably be around your sinking boat. So you're much better off getting out of the sinking boat rather than getting trapped. We'll talk about people that ended up getting trapped in there. I looked into it, and there was this 35-year-old woman that survived with her 1-year-old baby. She had a little baby girl that she managed to save. There's accounts of her saying that she managed to keep the baby above water while swimming. Again, she's not a survival expert. She's not a badass Marine, Navy. No, just an ordinary, somewhat fit woman that knows how to swim. So let's go back to, it's a certain age, knowing how to swim, having the drive to keep yourself and your child alive, which is super instinctive in basically most mothers. But with the ability to swim, there's a lot of people that don't know how to swim. It is damn concerning. I was in the beach actually yesterday. There's people that don't know how to swim. There's grown men that have the ability to function in the world, and they don't bother to learn how to swim. You see them just getting their feet wet, but they cannot swim, let alone swim in the ocean, let alone swim in the middle of a storm. Now, this marketing lady, 35-year-old with a baby, she's no survival expert, she's no athlete, she's a marketing person, but somewhat fit, knows how to swim, has the dedication, and she managed to survive all of 2-3 minutes until she got herself to a raft. That's all that was needed to keep herself and her baby alive. That just shows you how, and I always try to remember that not everyone is in the same place in life or in your journey of preparedness. If you don't know how to swim, learn how to swim. If you're not fit enough to survive swimming for a few minutes in the ocean, give it a try. It's actually a lot of fun. Go swimming with your family, with your kids. If you go to the beach, you probably want to know how to swim. The raft had a flare. Most likely, it was one of these electric flare with LEDs, not just not just gunpowder just flaring away. Probably an electric flare of some kind. And she just needed a couple minutes to find this raft and get her baby and herself on board, and that was all that they needed.
Inflate and force the canister open, and then it will paddles.
And the raft will have a certain amount of survival gear and equipment. Keep in mind, this happened all very close to the shore. It was actually filmed from the shore as the ship sank, which, by the way, we'll look into a second. But again, the life raft will have a bunch of gear that will allow you to survive for a long time. It has a beacon. Your odds of surviving when you're out of that boat and in one of these rafts, which, again, it's not exclusive to super yachts. Most ships will have these things, right?
A topping up pump, and strike, hit the vessel and snap the mast, causing the yacht to capsize. However, there is an issue with that theory. In fact, we spoke to a sailing yacht expert, a former surveyor, and he told us that in actual fact, the mast snapping would actually improve the stability of the yacht.
So the expert says that the snapping of the tallest aluminium mast in the planet was not the reason why it sunk, and the actual expert explains that it actually improves your stability once you no longer have that mast. And if you've read some of these books about surviving and at the sea and whatnot, you may have read more than once that maybe the final decision, and I think that in some movies they show it too, that cut the mast. So the captain calls for cutting the mast as a last resort, last desperate resource, so as to keep the ship afloat, because if not, it will reach that angle in which it starts sinking. So losing the mast is not what makes the boat sink. It's probably one of the things that gives you somewhat of a nod of surviving. At least that's how it used to be in these olden days, when cutting the mast was somewhat of common practice in a last desperate resort.
He said in days of old, when all else failed, sailing ships would intentionally cut away their mast to improve stability. So it's unlikely that the mast snapping would cause the vessel to capsize. Our expert has his own theory about what may have happened, but first we need to explain a design feature of this particular yacht, which is something called a lifting keel. A lifting keel is lowered hydraulically when under sail.
So this being a super mega yacht, super expensive, had this fancy electric keel that brings it up and down, and that is pretty awesome. This gives it more stability or more speed depending on what you're going through and what kind of conditions you're dealing with, but this is moving up and down. Now, it also has to be said, when you bring this thing up, as he says,
to increase stability of the yacht. The keel of this particular yacht, our expert believes, also contained most of the ballast or weight for stability. He said this really adds to sailing stability when the keel is down, but massively raises the center of gravity of the vessel when up. When the keel is in the open position, only the hull's form stability comes into play. This works up to a certain angle of heel or leaning, when the vessel becomes as stable upside down as it is the right way up. He went on to say that this yacht had one of the tallest masts of any sailing vessel, and if there was a tornado, then the wind could well have blown against the rig, the mast, sideways to her anchor position. This would have heeled her over dramatically, leaned her over, and with the keel up and limited stability as they were close to shore, she goes over on her beam ends, probably hatches and ports, etc. may have been open, and down she goes.
Open as a warm night. Also keep in mind, and this is not the yacht expert speaking, this is just me speaking, this is a luxury boat. This is a luxury mega yacht. It's not a vessel intended for great survival odds against combat. It's not a fighting. No, this is a luxury boat, meaning there's a lot of windows, and as he says, open on a warm night. So it's all about the experience of enjoying this thing, having the best state-of-the-art tech that money buys. There's still something, and this applies to all sorts of survival. It's about boats. It's about tech let's say you have a luxury mansion with all of the best that money buys. It has the best alarm system, the best panic room, the bulletproof doors, bulletproof windows, bulletproof everything. But if I'm having a party and everything is open for the party, and you are negating many of these things that make it so awesome to survive horrible things, but it's the people running it and the practice that, yeah, they were not all running around closing all of the windows. Probably all of this was open, and the moment it tilts enough, it just gets full of water and it sinks. But I think there's something to be said about this keel that was bringing it up or down. And he says in the video that now experts will have to determine, and the divers will be able to tell if this was brought up or if it was brought down. If it was still up, then it makes sense that it got to an angle where just water took and it just sank. I mean, it could also be that this was down, but because of the currents. Keep in mind, this was a huge storm, and we don't have to guess much here either. We do have footage of what happened.
On board. This new footage captures the 184-foot boat.
There's a mast
in a sudden fierce storm. You can see the yacht with its lighted mast as it starts to tilt before disappearing beneath the surface within seconds.
So it tilts. We know that it tilts. Within seconds, it just disappears. The mast break and everything collapses. What was it exactly? Well, definitely not the mast breaking, right? That was definitely not it. Now, tilting, why? Because that mechanic keel was up, and it was just, we will just have to wait and see. But this is a luxury ship. All of the doors, windows, everything open. The angle too much, water went in, and it just sunk, man. That's simply the way these things go. Beautiful sailing boat. It's so unfortunate that this happened. But when you look at the image of this one, and this is not explaining the video, but final lesson is you don't want to get caught. If you're in one of these boats and you see that there's a huge storm, I would try to make sure that I'm not this guy here, sitting in my bed, waiting for things to be okay. You want to get yourself close to the exit as possible in case you have to abandon ship. You have to leave the boat and go for one of those rafts, which they will be there, so keep that in mind. Don't wait here, and if you see water going in, don't just, I'll just ride this storm in this pocket of air. Man, no. We already know there's already been divers that are already looking through those windows, and they're saying that, yeah, nope, that's not what you want to do. You want to be out there like this lady was with her baby. Those guys, those people survived. The ones that stayed in their cabin, those did not. A few seconds, but if there's anything you take from this video, keep that in mind. Guys, that's going to be all for now. I hope you learned something and you remember it in case you one day have to make one of these very tough decisions. See you next time. Take care.